So today we are going to discuss. I'm going to present a topic which is securing your APIs, and we specifically discuss how we can do it using the MuleSoft. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Mohammad Mazhar Ansari. I am a senior solution architect. I have around 15 plus of years of experience in the IT industry, and majorly I have worked in integration domain. Previously, I was worked on TIPCO tools like TIPCO BW, BPM, and B, and now I am from last 1 year I am associated with Epicero, and I am working on a MuleSoft. So let's. This is the agenda for our today's presentation. We will discuss what is API security and why we need it, and what are the different types of API security threats, and how we actually implement the API security, and what are the methods in general we can come up to overcome the threats. And then we specifically discuss how we can implement it in the using the Mule runtime security capabilities. Okay, and also we will discuss like Mule, how do we can use we can apply these security capabilities of MuleSoft using the studio, and also discuss the AnyPoint platform API capabilities. Okay, so obviously like Mule provides few capabilities we can apply at the design time. You can at the deployment time. Okay, so we will discuss both the time, and also we will discuss how AnyPoint platform is compliance with these all security and other data protections. Okay, so let's start. The first section is API security. Okay, so in this, like we like first of all, what is API security and why we need it. Okay, so if you guys have observed that in last few years, at least in last 4 5 years, there's a lot of APIs and lots of companies are exposing their APIs, and there is a lots of companies who are using other third party APIs for their integrations. Okay, and like Facebook is exposing their APIs, Google is exposing their APIs, now AWS cloud, and there is a lot of cloud platforms are there, so it is easy to uh, uh, integrate using the APIs. Okay, so when the a company, okay, or an enterprise expose the API, so they will give a flexibility that third party systems or third party companies or whoever the person or the enterprise in interested, they can easily integrate it. But when they expose the API, there's a risk of that they are exposing the data to for unknown, they don't know who is going to access it. Okay, so that's why the API security is very much needed. Okay, so whenever we are exposing any API, okay, whether it is a user who is accessing those API, or the apps or using those API, or you are as an application, you are consuming someone else API. Okay, so between as a server or the client. Okay, at the both point you are exposing the API, and it is very necessary to protect your data from unauthorized and unauthenticated user. You want to make sure that the data which is you're sharing with the public data. Okay, because it is very specific to the user or maybe the company related data. So you want to make sure that the data which you are sending to the third party is it because ex- they are consuming it from the outside network. It is not your on-prem network. It is outside your not network. So you want to make sure that whatever the data you are accessing is secure. Okay, so uh, we will see. Okay, so this is in general is what is API security and why we need it. And first we will discuss, before we will go to how we will implement the API security, we will discuss few of the methods or the threads which can come in a picture when you are exposing your API. Okay, so there is a basically OWASP categorize almost 10 topmost different kind of threads which can be a cause, and every application or the API or the enterprise should take care of it. But I think those all 10 comes fall within these threes. Okay, so the first one is the man in the middle, second one is the API injection, and the third one is the distributed denial of service, or we in short we call it DDoS. Okay, so we will see what it is in a pictorial view. We can see what it is actually. Okay, so when we say man in the middle, we obviously, like, it is very straightforward. We are saying there is a man in the middle. Okay, so there is a user, there is an application, and you are accessing the data over the APIs. Okay, but there can be a proprietor or the man which is in the middle, which is acting as a proxy. Okay, which is listening the conversation between the user and the web application. Okay, maybe you are sharing the password, you are sharing the credit card information, or your financial data, or maybe some other user is very confidential data like SSN, other number. Okay, so in that case, if the man in middle is there, they can if API is not secure, they can easily listen to your conversation and can get the data which is they are interested. Maybe your SSN, maybe your Aadhaar card number, maybe your date of birth, maybe your credit card details. Okay, which they can sell in the black market. Okay, so we want to this is a very common kind of exception is there, like whenever you are using any proxy servers. Okay, so proxy server is a very ideal example of the man in the middle. Anyway, it doesn't store our information in a wrong way. But if you see, like, the TCP monitor is one of the example where you are interacting with a web application or the and application, and you are getting all the transaction is completed, because the TCP monitor or the web the proxy servers, what they do is they receive your request, they can read it, they can consume the data, but they will forward it to the web application or the end system. End system responds it, they will receive again the data, they can read it and can get the meaningful information, and they pass the same information again to the user. So user or the web application will not be able to guess that, okay, there is someone else who is listening our conversation between the user and the web application, and might be that man in middle can get that information and can misuse it. Okay, so this is a very common type of attacks. We will see how to overcome it. The second one is the API injection. So API injection can be of SQL injection or XSS. So in SQL injection, whenever you are having a query, okay, so like you want to get the item number of 99, if they do the API injection or SQL injection, they can put this condition also, like, or 111. In this case, the first scenario, what will happen, they will get all the data from the item tables. Okay, similarly, the second one, they are deleting the some other table. Okay, this is the things can happen using the API injection, SQL injection. Okay, the second example of API injection is XSS. Okay, that is cross scripting. Okay, so there is a web service and there is a website visitor, and they can inject some XSS scripts which can steal the user's data. Okay, so it is for that they need some specific skills, but hackers who have those kind of skills, so they can easily do it. For the normal person, it can be difficult. Okay, so we also will see how we can overcome this. Okay? And the third one is the basic type. The most important is the DDoS, which is distributed denial of the services. The distributed denial of services can happen on any of the 7 layer of the network. The TCP layer, you can say, the network layer, it can happen on TCP layer, it can happen on any layer, but we generally talk about here as the HTTP, because we are exposing most of the services on the HTTP. So what in this case the attacker will do, they just want to harm the service. Okay, they don't want to get the benefit of by any means. They will overload our system with such a huge traffic that our service will not, if you are exposing any service, it will not be available for the actual user who want to use it. Okay, so they are not getting any data from here, but they are disturbing the service by sending unnecessary traffic, and they are making it unable for the meaningful users. Okay, so it can also happen, like sometimes you might have listened to the news that some particular service is down because someone bombarded with the network things. Okay, so they do it because they are not getting any information, because they are not listening to any customer information, they are not doing anything, but they are making sure that if you are using some portal which is very necessary for you, like the SSN portal or maybe Aadhaar portal or the tax return portal. Okay, so they will bombard it with such a request that it will not be accessible at the right moment to the actual people. Okay? And now we will see how to implement the, if we have the threats, then might be there is a possible solution for that. Okay, so we will see what are the in general solutions we have for the to restrict these kind of API security. So whenever we talk about these API security, we will generally categorize as the identity, message integrity, and the message confidentiality. Okay, so we will see what is identity in the next slide. So when we say identity, okay, so identity, when I say you are going to any mall or maybe any airport, okay, they will ask for your identity card. Okay, so you will show your passport or maybe your Aadhaar card, driving license or something. Okay, so by showing your identity card, you are representing that okay, you are the authorized person who are allowed to enter it. Okay, so identity is a code of the security word. Okay, and you generally use the identity store obviously, like if you are presenting some passport. Okay, so there's somewhere that the identity data should be stored. Okay, and there is a server who should give us that data. Okay, so we will talk in later in detail, like LDAP is generally the LDAP server which we use for the identity provider for the enterprise users in a organization. Okay, but how we can use identity in a different ways. Okay, obviously, like as I given you the real-time example about the passport, you can use as identity card, you can use your Aadhaar card, you can use your driving license. Okay, or you use your nationality card. Okay, so that you can use the identity. But in the terms of the API or the web, how you will authenticate or identify yourself. Okay, so there are the few ways which we can do it. Okay, so there is a whenever you are providing identity. Okay, so you are, by providing the identity, you either doing the authentication and authorization. There was a minute difference within authentication and authorization. Authentication, you, by providing the authentication, you are saying you are the valid user. Okay, but while providing the authentication, you can't say which, if you are a valid user, you are allowed to which access you have. Okay, so for that we will come the authorization. Okay, authorization is like a top off of authentication, where you say okay, you are a valid user also, and with the validity of user, you also have a few privileges. Okay, so what privileges you have, you will provide as a part of the authorization. Okay, so we have different methods for authentication and authorization. The basic method for authentication is the username password, which is the basic one. Okay, which we use, but that is very rarely used in the API world, because if you are sharing your credentials. Okay, there can be a multi-factor authentication, like you are giving your username, password, you are getting the token, and you are inserting the token, like we use it in the credit card transaction with the OTP. Okay, and third one is the token based credential, where you are not sharing your username password, but you are generating a token based on username password, which is not you are sharing with the API, but you are sharing the token only. Okay, and the token, when you share with the API or the server have a responsibility of validating that token, whether it is a valid or not, or it is a valid user or not. With that identity, you can also provide the authentication, which is like OpenID 2.0 that you can say. Okay, similarly, like authorization, when you say, so if suppose you are using the LDAP. Okay, so LDAP, you can configure the which business group you are belong, what kind of accesses you have. So while authorization, we can have three different types, like role based access control, attribute based access control, or delegated access control using OAuth 2.0. Okay, so in a role based access control, what it will happen is, like when you are a user of the LDAP, suppose. Okay, so you will be a valid user of the LDAP, but you will be also belong to the some role or the some groups, and based on those roles and groups, I can assign some kind of authorization. Okay, suppose you are a part of HR group. Okay, you are a HR manager. So in case of the HR manager, you will have a leave approval policy access. You might have the promotion access. You have the accesses to the user employees personal data. You might have access to employee salary data access. Okay, so based on role based access, you can do it. Similarly, role based access, for obviously roles, you can't use it for everything. It is very stringent. So we we go to next step where you say attribute access, attribute based access. Okay, so also when we will, you are a part of the LDAP, you might have few attributes. Okay, so few attributes like you are a HR manager. So with that access attributes, you can give that what kind of access you have, because attribute can be changed very easily in an LDAP than the role. Okay, attribute can be changed very easily instead of the role. So there is a few companies, a few policies where you can use that attribute based access control using the LDAP also. And the third one, and most popular one, is the delegated access control. Okay, with OAuth 2.0. Okay, so when we talk about delegated access control and the token based credential, it is almost similar. Okay, but in a token based credential, you are just providing what are the, whether you are authenticated yourself, you are not authorizing. Okay, but with the delegated access control, you can also have a scope attached with your token base. Okay, so with that scopes, you can authenticate or authorize yourself that what kind of access you can be granted. Okay, so we can discuss it how we will implement Immune in a few next slides. Okay, the second part is message integrity. Okay, so till now we are saying that okay, you validated yourself, that's perfectly okay. But when we are talking about the first attack, that is man in middle attack. Okay, so in man in middle attack, the user and the web application was not getting the picture that there is someone who is listening to their message. And why they are able to listen their message? Because this message was not encrypted. Okay, in that case, if user or app, you can validate yourself, or you can identify yourself to the server that you are still valid and the message is not encrypted. Okay, so in that they can alter the message and then they can still listen to the message. Okay, so when two application, the server or client interacting, we should have we generally send a signed messages. What signed messages is like, you are signing it with the digital signature, and you are saying okay, this is the hashtag. Okay, for this message, if someone modify it, and you will get the message if you generate the hashtag again, MD5 hashtag or like that, and it is not same, means like you can validate it. It is like it is a not a proper message which the client responds at. Okay, suppose whenever you are using the MuleSoft Anypoint Studio, might be you have seen that there is a after you download the download start, you will get one screen where it will say the what is the MD5 hash token for this software is. So that hash token is generating that when you will generate the MD5 hash token for that Anypoint Studio zip file, it should be similar to the one that is displaying into the screen. If it is not same, you can understand that this file is modified someone in between while you are downloading. Okay? So that's how we do the message integrity. Okay, the second one is the confidentiality. So in the message integrity, we what generally people do is like they either uh, uh, sign their whole payload or the part of payload. Okay, but the end-to-end communication is not encrypted. Okay? Because maybe the header information and other information, only the payload part is encrypted. Okay, and that is only signed with a public key. Okay, some certificate, but the whole communication from the end to end is not encrypted. So for confidentiality purpose, that we want to make sure that apart from the payload, the user, the man in the middle or the text can't even see whatever you are passing as a part of the whole communication. You use the different kind of, you encrypt that message. Okay, and encryption can happen with different technologies. Okay, like there can be a public key cryptography. Public key cryptography is like you also have a public key, I also have the same public key. I will send the message using that public key. You can decrypt that message. While responding, you will send the response, encrypt that message using the public key, and I will decrypt that using the same public key. But the problem with this public key cryptography is that we all are using the same public key. If suppose there is a one third person is also using the same public key, they can pretend as me, and then they can use my information. Okay, so they can if they somehow get the response from the server, they can decrypt it using that public key. So public key cryptography, when you are using it, is not very secure. So we will have a digital certificates and then mutual authentication. In a digital certificates, what we say is like we will have a trust store and key store concepts. Okay, so trust store is trust store. We will put the certificates of the public key provided by the server, and the key store we will keep our private keys. Okay, so that's how we create the certificates, and we can have the mutual authentication. Okay, so digital certificate you can use the one way, that is the HTTPS one way, we call it. And when we say mutual authentication using the digital certificates, we will say it is a two-way SSL. Okay, so we will see how we can implement it in a MuleSoft. Okay, so till now we was talking about what are the API security, what are the different trees, and what are the different methods we can use to prevent those API security threats. Now we will see how we can use Anypoint Runtime and actually use those capabilities and implement it in the MuleSoft. Okay, so when I will say in this further slides, whatever I am going to present, it is the capabilities which we can implement using the business Anypoint Studio. Okay, not Anypoint platform. Okay. So the first one is like we have a HTTPS connector which can give us the facility of either you can use it for the SSL, one-way SSL or two-way SSL. Okay, so whenever you are creating NEP, when you are using HTTP connector, you can use it for the both way. Okay, you can act as a publisher, you can create a server as well, you can create as a client as well. Okay, so HTTP connector both HTTP connector have a HTTP listener. In that case, you can create the server, and HTTP you have a HTTP request where you can create the HTTP clients. Okay, so MuleSoft provide both the things, and both the things they provide the TLS concepts like the rest store key store, which we have discussed in the last thing. Okay, so that way you can add the certificate, and you can use MuleSoft HTTPS connector for one-way SSL handshake or two-way SSL handshake. Okay, and might be most of the people already, if you are working on an Anypoint Studio, this is the basic thing which we generally do for the POCs or whenever we are working, when we start working on MuleSoft. Okay, so might be most of the people have seen this. Sorry, just one more. Yeah. So second one is the Mule encryption process. There might be very few people have used it. There is some DataWeave crypto libraries also available where you can use it. So this one is for the second point, where we are saying we are attaching a signature with a payload. So you can, in this method, you are by using this crypto palette, you can implement the integrity. Okay, so you can use the payload or the part of the payload, and you can apply different kind of, you can see like JCE decrypt is there, this JCE encrypt is there, PGP is there, you can validate the XML, validate the checksum. Okay, so these all are there for the server and the client. If your Mule is acting as a server or Mule is acting as a client, in both way functionality and the activities are available. And with this palette, you can implement the integrity in the MuleSoft. That is the signature, or the you are signing that your payload. Okay, and third one is the, obviously, like we will discuss here, is the MuleSoft. Okay, so MuleSoft always, like we know that there is an OpenID and OAuth2 providers. Okay, lots of OpenID providers are there, like we have Okta, most available. Okay, but MuleSoft also provide you to create your own OAuth 2.0 provider. Okay, so that is a recent, I think recently 3-4 months back they have added it. And if you are not interested into buying any Okta license or some license, you can create your own OAuth server using the Mule OAuth token service OAuth 2 provider. Okay, so in this way, you can replace the Okta server or the any kind of OAuth server provider by your own provider, and this provider will give you the whole functionality. Because in general, whenever you are talking about OAuth 2. Okay, so they have three endpoints: the validate, authorize, and access token. So the first, authorize, what it will do, you will present your identity, client ID, client secret, username, password, so that it will authorize yourself. You will get the access token, and then based on that access token, you will generate a token, and that token you can use it as a exchange between the message from the server and the client. Okay, and once you will get that exchange, you can send it with a request, and once your mule is acting as a mule or provider, they will call as a validate service and can validate whether this is a validate token or not. Okay, and also with this token, they also have a refresh tokens is also provided, and other things, whatever the Okta 2 operations you can think of, they all can you can implement using the mule OAuth 2 provider. Okay, apart from this is what we are talked about, like the while exchanging the data between. But apart from exchanging, if there's a whenever you are designing an application, mule also provide to encrypt the passwords or confidential information at the design time also, and you can change it at the runtime. So MuleSoft have a credential vault. Okay, most of you use it for the property file encryption, and mostly it is used for password, but it can be used for other things, whatever the information you want to encrypt. So it can't be visible with the naked eyes. Okay, so you need to use particular key to decrypt it, and you should know what is the method to use it for the encrypt, and then only you can decrypt it. Okay, so you also provide that one. Sorry for that. Now, till now, we talked about what are the capabilities we have in our Endpoint Studio. Okay, so that is because we mostly use Mule Endpoint Studio as a design time. Now we will think about what we can do at the runtime once our application is deployed. Okay, because there is a lot of things which where you are not changing your functionality, because authorization is not part of your actual functionality. That's the add-on. Okay, and for add-on, you it should be such a way, it should design in such a way that you need not to touch your code, you need not to touch your basic functionality. So most of the might be nowadays you have this lots of API managers are available. So we in Anypoint platform also we have a API manager which provides the loss of capability, where you don't need to touch the exact actual functionality, and you can add the capabilities on top of your code. So we will discuss it. What are the different capabilities are provided by the Anypoint Studio? Okay, so Anypoint Studio, Anypoint platform. Okay, have a vast number of tools under it, and the main thing where we apply the security on API is API Manager. Okay, so in general, what is the Anypoint platform? Anypoint platform is a multi-tenant solution running on the top of Amazon Web Service. It is maintained by MuleSoft, and it is inside the VPC. Okay, and it can do lots of things. You can deploy it, have a cloud hub also, it have other things as well. Okay, so you can on mostly, like we are talking about the API security, so we will discuss the what is API manager in Anypoint Studio and how we can use it in the next few slides. Okay, so using the API manager, we generally have a policies. Okay, so we generally design a RAML. Okay, based on a RAML, we do the implementation. The designing happens into the design center, which is again on an Anypoint platform. Okay, you can export that RAML and can design the implementation in business Anypoint Studio. So that is Anypoint Studio. But once the code is ready, and now you have a things like you want to make your application secure. So Anypoint platform API manager provide different kind of policies where you can implement those policies, you can change their orders, and can give your application, you can make those applications secure. So it can it have a vast number of different policy as per your requirement, your NFA, non-functional requirement, NFR. You can implement few. Okay, based on like it have a basic authentication, and it also have a Okta or auth implementation, open ID implementation as well. So based on your need, you can use it. But I will go one by one to every policy. Okay, so it have the first one is the HTTP basic authentication. So obviously it is a simple authentication policy protected your API, but in this case you are using hard coded values, or maybe a few values which is stored in an XML file like username password combination. But it is like you need to send those username and password along with your uh, uh, along with your request. Second one is LDAP authentication policy. In this also you need to provide the username password, but the username password validation happen against the LDAP. Okay, so maybe if you are a corporate user, okay, and you have some username password of your LDAP, okay, like your employee ID and the password for LDAP, so you can pass the same thing, and once the API will receive, it will validate against that the configured LDAP. Okay, if you are a validated user, you will be passed through, otherwise you will get a 401 error. Okay, and the third one is the client ID enforcement. You don't want to use your username password because you are passing it in a plain text. So what is the MuleSoft provide? You can use a client ID enforcement. Okay, so whenever you are consuming your API, you need to register yourself. Mule will provide you the client ID and client secret. At the time of calling that service or the API, you need to pass the client ID and client secret. That can be changed anytime because that is not specific to the user. It is specific to the client who is going to consume it. Okay, and MuleSoft or you have the full capability because you are exposing when we say HTTP basic authentication or LDAP authentication, it is like hard coded values. Okay, you should be when we say LDAP authentication policy, you should be the valid user of that LDAP. Okay, but when the third party application you are going to call, like suppose Facebook is exposing some policies. Okay, at that time I'm not part of the Facebook. I'm a third party. So at that time, they can give you the client ID enforcement. They can give you a random client ID and client secret that is specific to that client or me, and I can use it and pass it as a header or as a part of body, and they can validate against it. Okay? So that is about authentication. And now they have also rate limiting. Okay, so there is a 2-3 different combination of rate limiting, and there is a very minor difference between it. Rate limiting, throttling, SLA based rate limiting, SLA based throttling, and the spike control is all having the same purpose. They want to restrict the incoming request on incoming traffic from a particular API, so the DDoS cannot happen, and you can restrict based on your quota. Okay, so every user or every client you can give a quota, and they can't use that. If they exceed the quota, it can be the incoming request can be rejected, or it can be queued based on the kind of policy you applied. So in case of the rate limiting, you are not assigned any quota because you are not. It is not SLA based. It is just that this particular API will consume this much request in this specific time. It doesn't care from where request is coming and who is calling it. Okay, so you are restricting your DDoS attack at the whole level. Okay, you're not. The throttling is you don't reject the request when it exceeds the general quota. At that time, what you do is like you will queue it for some time, and whenever that window of that rate limiting is finished, you can take the queued request and can process it. But there's a delay in that because you are queuing your request. Okay, so maybe depend on the use case, you want to choose the rate limiting and the throttling. Now, when we call it as a SLA based rate limiting or SLA based throttling, you are giving the quota of number of requests within a specific time to a particular user, and that user can be defined as a client ID, client enforcement, or the client. Okay, so and that client, so the quota you can define for the same API, a different quota can be applied for a different user or different client based on you can define it, you can assign the quota, and based on their quota, it can, once you exceed the quota, it will reject the request. Okay, and now the fifth one comes in a picture is a spike control. Okay? So spike control is one of the same thing like rate limiting, but why I need a spike control? Okay? So suppose I am giving a user a quota of suppose 10,000 requests in a day. So it's up to user how many times they want to use. They want to exceed the quota within 1 hour or maybe within 5 minutes. If suppose they are trying to hit 10,000 requests in the 5 minutes because I have given the quota for a whole day, but they want to consume it for within 5 minutes. In that case, might be my system will not able to not accept that 10,000 can't process that 10,000 or 10 lakh requests in that 5 minutes window which I have assigned to the user. In that case, spike control comes. Okay, I assign you some quota, but you can't exceed this number of requests in a single window. Okay, so spike control comes in those cases, very specific use cases. Okay, but these all rate limiting, spike control, throttling, this will help you to avoid the DDoS attacks. Now we talk about the mule over to access token enforcement. So we discussed it earlier as well, like when we discussed the token based on a that user give their client ID and client secret, they will get a access token based on that authentication code. Based on that authentication, they will generate the token and refreshment token, and once they will get the refreshment token, they can use it to validate and authenticate or authorize themselves to access any service. Okay, and the server, who is like in our case, we are applying it on our API using the API manager. So in case this our Mule application or the Mule engine can validate the token against the predefined auth2 server and can see whether these guys are authenticated or not. Okay. So that hope this picture is very clear, like how they are doing it. Now we will move to other policies, the whitelisting and blacklisting. Okay, so whitelisting and blacklisting allows or denies permits based on the IP addresses. Okay, so hope the name is very clear, and you can see blacklisting is red, means like it is error. You can't access this API from this IP addresses, and whitelisting is the like, okay, you are if request coming from these IP addresses, obviously they are whitelisted. Whitelisted means like you are allowed, and blacklisted means not allowed. So these also have a different use cases based on the number of IPs you want to allow or disallow. You will choose which one you need to choose. If you have, suppose like you have a lot thousands of whitelist address, in that case you will go for the blacklisted because the blacklist number of IPs will be less. Okay, and vice versa. You need to choose. Also, we can apply the cross course policy, which is mostly if someone is calling your application using the Node.js, JavaScript, or some portal. So there you can make sure that the cross origin is not happening while calling, and you are allowing the cross origin request to be called from the web browsers. Apart from these all policy, we have JSON and XML thread protection. In this, you will guarantee that whatever the JSON and XML you are getting as a part of payload is not have some mischief data. Okay, they validate whether it don't have their start tag and end tag is correct. They have a valid XML. It have a valid JSON. It don't have any some scripting language hidden in this. Okay. So that allows that one. We have header injection and header removal. This is very specific when you want to pass any header, okay, which is not coming, or you want to remove any header from the which client is sending, and you don't want to send it to the Mule application. You can use this policy, so they can specifically modify the header based on your need. They can either inject the new headers, or they can remove the particular headers from the request response as per your need. And the tokenization, detokenization, obviously it is help you to protect your confidential information. Like suppose you are sending the credit card information. Okay, it is going in a plain text. Anybody can read it. If the Mule developer some by mistake forget to write trying to write those payload into the log file, anybody who have the access can read those things from the log files. Okay, So you can use tokenization, detokenization to they can hide your sensitive information, and user can't see it or with the naked eyes. Okay, and we also have a JW policy. We call it JWT, or some people call it JIOT. It also again has a validation one. It is an extension of OAuth 2, and it provides the authentication and authorization both. And people will try to use it as a delegated access to authorization and authentication. Apart from that, okay, whatever the policy we have discussed, there is a few. If you feel that okay, some policies are not present, MuleSoft provide the full capability or the tools that you can write your own custom policies. Okay, so as a, obviously you should have such a development skills to write those security policies. But obviously, once you design those new security policy, you can import it in your API manager and you can use it and apply it anywhere. Okay? So you can develop the policy, package it, and upload it as a resulting policy, and also apply it anywhere. Okay? So Mule also provide those things also. We have a shortage of time, so I'm not going very deep in it. I'm just giving you the high level view. But if you have any specific question, you can ask in the chat, or maybe you can reach out to me later on as well. Okay. Apart from that, okay, so whatever the policy we have discussed so far, okay, we are applying it at the individual level. So as part of your NFR, okay, you are assigning those policy one by one to your each and every different policy. But might be you have a requirement where you want to assign few policy by default to each API at the organization level. Okay, so MuleSoft provide that automated policies which you can configure. You should have some admin rights, and you can configure at the environment level. So whenever you are deploying any API on that environment, those policy will be defaultly be applied on those all APIs. Okay, so like you want to do opt authentication or maybe other authentication, you want to make sure that XML and JSON token is there. Okay. So those kind of things you can use it as automated policy, and you don't need to, once you will apply the automated policy, you need not to be applied at the individual API because it is already applied by default. Okay, so MuleSoft also provide that one. Age security, this is a little bit deeper project, the deeper topic. I will not want to go there, but if you have any specific question, I will try to answer. Okay, and okay, so this is till now we was talking about how we are securing the data, how we are authenticated and authorized users. But if you want to protect your data and you don't want that unwanted requests come to your environment, MuleSoft also provide the Anypoint Virtual Clouds, okay, which can restrict your ports and you can decide from where the requests can reach it. So you are obviously like you're deploying your application on a cloud, but you can make your own private cloud, and so no unauthorized or a user can reach there, and you can restrict the incoming traffic on the ports, different ports. Okay, so generally it provides 8081 or 8091. If you open out this application can listen on those ports only. Apart from other ports, it will block until unless you are not opening. So it is very good if somehow you forget to open some port in your application and you are not aware of, and your application is not deployed in a VPC virtual cloud, and those by default port is by default open. They, if some hacker have a good knowledge of it, they can reach out to and can hack that application. Okay, so VPC is one of the good tool, but VPC generally people use with VPN to make the data secure with on-prem and hybrid environment, and you can also use different kind of VPN like IP Connect and other things. So you can connect with the AWS and VPC pairing. You can also use, if you want to use dedicated load balancer, because you have different kind of requirements and you have a high load and SLA is different. You can also use dedicated load balancer, but for dedicated load balancer and VPN, the basic quality, the basic necessity is like it can be applied only in case of if you have a VPC cloud, VPC. So till now we talked about API policy, how we can the different kind of policy which API platform provide. Apart from whenever we are saying API platform, okay, it can also you are deploying it into when we deploy any application in the cloud, you expose or deploy that application into uh, MuleSoft maintained environment. Okay, and some client is very worried because like the financial customers or European clients, suppose. So they are very worried that whether they are, because they are deploying their application into someone else managed environment, is their data is protected or not. Okay, so MuleSoft provides some compliances, have certificates. They rigorously do all the certification time by time. It is ISO 2007 framework security compliance program that it guarantees that MuleSoft, when you deploy any application in a MuleSoft, it will only store the statistics and the metadata. It will not store any kind of data which is very specific to the user or very confidential to the user. So they give this compliance certificates and they keep taking those certificates. Salesforce also do the same practice, and MuleSoft also do the same practice. They appear in a different certificates. They keep the compliance and certificate to make sure to give the guarantee that whenever customer using any point platform, their data is secure and is in the same safe end. Okay, so that's it from, I think, yeah, so that's it from my side. I think I'm done. So if anyone have a specific question, I will try to answer it. Okay, there's okay, let me quickly see different questions. Okay. I'm getting real. Oh, sorry for that. I didn't hear it. Hope this got resolved, or you find it continuously. Does client need to import SSL certificate in their key store when a client is not using the certificate-based authentication but just the SSL transmission? Does the client need to import SSL certificate? Okay, so if you are using one-way SSL, okay, like in general, like I open the Google. Okay, so if you see the Gmail is protected HTTPS, but my browser doesn't have any public certificate because it automatically download. In that case, you don't need to do it. It automatically do it. Okay. The second question: OAuth provider is a part of the same infrastructure as the gateway runtime, or is it installed on a different software? Okay, when you say OAuth provider, MuleSoft as an OAuth provider, you need to create an application and deploy it on a different workers. Okay, so it will be an application, and yet you can use that application for the validation. Okay, so it will not be part of the gateway; it will be part of the server. You need to create an application. Okay, does throttling apply to for sync APIs? Yes. In the whitelist, will the IP entered will be only given to the permission and rest the IP will be denied? Yes. When you say you are whitelisting IPs, suppose I have designed an application and I have given my organization IDs. So obviously those IDs will only be valid. Other IPs will not be can access the access their application. Okay. Can you please explain again the difference between the spike control and the throttling policy? Okay, so there is a very minute difference in a spike. Okay, so generally you give the quota by a day. Okay, so some clients they take the quota by a day because they don't know what time they are going to call it. Okay, but they evenly distribute their they call it. But sometimes it happens that if you are giving 10 lakh requests in a day for a user, that might be a case that they try to use your application at particular given time more. Okay, like in one window I am calling in 10 minutes window I am calling it for 1 lakh time or 2 lakh times. Okay, so in that case might be your application is not that sustainable that it can handle those all requests. So you at the time what you will do is like you will put that spike control on that, even though you are giving the rate limiting or throttling as a 10 lakh requests per day, but you are saying even I am assigned you the quota of 10 lakh or as a rate limiting or the throttling for a day, but you can't access 10,000 requests in 1 hour, you can suppose, or maybe 15 minutes. So hope it answered you. How can I use VPN connections? Okay, so VPN connections is like is like whenever you have on-prem environment and you want to connect to use some of the databases or the application which is installed or running in your on-prem database, and you want to access it from the a cloud hub, and you want to make sure that connection from the cloud hub to your on-prem is secure, then you can use the VPN. For the first requirement, you need to first create the VPC, then only you can use the VPN. Okay. How can I touch up the OS flow again from the client perspective? Okay. So okay, so when we will say OAuth, okay, so there is a two things, like the token is generated by the client. Okay, so there is a different steps and different methods are there. Okay, so you can it's up to you which one to use, and sometimes it depends on the what kind of application you are using. Okay, suppose when you are registered with Okta, I will take the example of Okta. You will try to register yourself with Okta, and you will try to when you will register with yourself in Okta as a client, okay, with a server, you will get a client ID and client secret. Based on that client ID and client secret, as a client, you are acting as a client. You will call a few services to get the auth token. Once you will get the auth token, you will pass that auth token for the next service. You will get the access token, and once you will get the access token, this is the manual steps you have done, or maybe a programming step done, but you are not hitting till now the actual API where you want to send out those tokens. This is you are doing internally. Okay. Once you will get the access token, you will call the service to the API of the actual API. Once the MuleSoft receive that request with the access token, first thing before passing it to the actual implementation, what MuleSoft do is like it will try to validate that token using the Okta, calling the validate URL. Okay, if it says success, it will pass on the sequence to MuleSoft actual implementation. If not, it will say it is not invalidated. It will run 401. Okay, so hope the client and server side both are clear, and it's up to you. Like the client can use any method of generating a token, and when you're generating a token, there is also a refresh token, because the token which you generate is validated for 1 hour. Okay, but refresh token which we generate is generally validated for 2 to 3 years, and based on that refresh token, you can keep generating your the token whenever your access token is expired. I think I am done with all the questions. If you guys have any question, you can type it. Audio is back. Okay, so I think hope you I was trying to answer the SQL injection. Hope you guys are able to hear me my answer, and I think I am done. If anybody have a question, just ping me. Otherwise, let's finish this up. Before finishing, I want to have a poll. Okay, I will start the poll if everyone is done. So whoever is attending, try to just participate in this poll, so it will help us to make ourselves better in future, and we will try to resolve your queries and make this presentation and cover more things in future. Whoever is attending, just please try to complete this one, and thanks for your whatever you have suggestion. You can drop. I think both the times our meeting presentation coordinator will reach you guys in case you have any comments, query, and you can reach out to us anytime on the LinkedIn and even the episode page. Okay, and there is a lot of news coming, the latest webinar, latest epic beer biryani events which we publish, and we try to do every week, every month at least, so you can continue to be in touch on that. Okay, thanks for your answers, and I have one more poll for you. Let's start that one. Okay, thanks guys.